I got the time today. I'm looking for all of the fades, want all of the smoke. All of my goals inside of the scope. I'm taking it healed and coming for more. Woke up, didn't even stretch. I'm placing my bets on myself. I be doing the most. Why you always talk like you wanted to go? I ain't gotta speak cause I already know.
All right, here we go with the transition regulator. With 2 versions and 2 different motors, the regulator offers something for everyone. Transition designed this bike to be more responsive and more lively than their other eMTBs. And after spending quite a bit of time on both models, I can confidently say they are very distinct in how they ride out on the trail. So stick around to see how they scored and which one is best for you. All right, here are the basics that you need to know before we go ride the regulator. The transition regulator is an all-mountain eMTB designed around an MX wheel setup. It comes with 2 distinct versions, the CX and the SX. Both have Bosch motors, and CX and SX respectively. We've got fairly aggressive yet moderate geometry, size-specific chainstays, and overall a ride that's designed to be playful, fun, and responsive. So let's jump into the ride review, and we're going to start with the drive system. Again, 2 options here, CX, SX. CX offers a full 85 Newton meters of peak torque, while the SX offers 55 Newton meters of peak torque. Both have distinct personalities and strengths, so let's dive into them. The CX motor is still top of the class for me in terms of power, reliability, integration. It's quiet, it's powerful, and it does everything you ask of it. It has plenty of torque and a pretty smooth power delivery. So for me, it checks all of the boxes. The only potential downside to the Regulator CX that I can see is you only have the ability to run a 600 watt-hour battery. So if you're planning those epic all-day rides, you are likely going to need a range extender in order to do that. Without the range extender, you're looking at about 3,200 to 3,500 feet of elevation gain. And that's for me at about 200 pounds in full boost. So now let's talk about the SX motor on the Regulator SX. This motor is Bosch's lightweight reduced power option, and it puts out 55 Newton meters of peak torque and comes with a 400 watt-hour battery, making it noticeably lighter than the CX. The big advantage of the SX for me is the power to weight ratio. It's light and efficient, and it packs a surprising punch for being a lightweight motor. For those shorter rides and lighter riders, this setup is great. But if you're a bigger rider or running boost mode frequently, you're going to hit the range limit pretty quick. Expect about 2,000 to 2,200 feet of vert on a single charge. Again, 200 pounds full boost. And yes, you can put the Bosch PowerMore range extender on this thing to give you an extra 250 Newton meters of capacity. Now let's get into how the Regulator performs on the climbs outside of the motor, the bike part. Both versions have a unique personality, but they're equally impressive in their own way. Starting with the Regulator suspension, it offers a good amount of traction and a more active feel. And because of that, it stays composed and calm on those tough technical climbs. The bike stays glued to the ground as you pedal through rough, rocky, loose, gross sections. In fact, it climbs so well that I ended up sessioning this ridiculously stupid steep climb until I stripped out the free hub body because this thing's pretty glued to the ground and I was climbing something stupid, so something had to give, and it was the free hub body. Whoa. And then I got to strider bike my way back down to the truck. The geometry and bike position also play a big role in the Regulator's climbing prowess. The moderately low front end keeps your weight over the front wheel on those steep climbs, helping with traction and control. The size-specific chainstays are fairly moderate to long, which keeps your weight well centered on the bike. And this position gives you a lot of control, making those tight, twisty technical climbs quite a bit easier. Combine all of that with the small rear wheel, which spins up pretty quick and adds to the bike's maneuverability, and you've got yourself a heck of a technical climber. So now let's chat about the SX version for just a second. For the most part, it's fairly similar to the CX. The geometry is the same, the suspension feels nearly identical, so the real difference comes from the lighter weight motor and reduced power, which, yes, is lighter, but it significantly affects the bike's handling. So thanks to this bike's better power to weight ratio, it's actually pretty damn fast uphill. Combine that with its improved handling, and I actually found the SX to be faster in a lot of situations compared to the CX.
I'll give you a 5-second head start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
On those tighter, more technical climbs, the SX lighter weight and quicker acceleration gave it the edge. It's pretty snappy and responsive, making it easier to speed up, slow down, dive, dodge, zig, and zag. On those straight, more open climbs, though, the CX will be faster because it does have more power. But in that constantly changing terrain, I think the SX is actually faster. All right, so now let's talk about how the Regulator goes downhill. Both versions prioritize handling and a playful natural ride quality over just pure plow and smash capability. That said, these bikes are still very capable. You could take them just about anywhere and have a good time. So starting with the CX version, this is more play than plow. The CX version leans more toward a fun and engaging ride quality rather than bulldozing through everything in its path. It's lively, responsive, supportive, and with a stiff frame and well-balanced geometry, it keeps the bike feeling pretty agile. The suspension is plush and easy to get into, giving the bike a calm, composed ride quality through rough, chattery sections without feeling harsh. It's certainly not as capable as bikes like the Orbea Wild or even Transition's Repeater. That makes a lot of sense. Those bikes have significantly more travel, they weigh quite a bit more, and they just have more aggressive intentions. So what the Regulator CX does offer, though, is forgiveness and ease of use. It's really easy to get along with this bike. It feels very natural. Right out of the parking lot, within a couple of minutes, I knew I was going to get along well with this bike. And it just makes it very fun to ride right from the get-go. So now, the SX version. This is the pedal bike-like descender. So the SX takes this playful vibe even further. With lighter weight components and a less robust build, the bike feels even more like a traditional mountain bike. It does lose a bit of capability compared to the CX, but it still holds its own. I wouldn't hesitate to take the SX just about anywhere, but it does feel a bit more spry and agile than its heavier brother. The geometry on both of these bikes is the same, I guess with one exception. The Regulator CX offers a flip chip, which is not on the SX, so the CX can be about a half degree slacker. Both have a moderate body position that feels very well balanced between the wheels. The reach is roomy, the longish rear center keeps things stable without losing that natural, agile ride quality that Transition was trying to accomplish with this bike. Both bikes are excellent in the corners, thanks to their front to back balance, solid traction from the suspension, and their MX wheel setup, which helps the bike lean over easily and snap around corners quickly. Whether the corner is flat and loose or bermed and hard-packed, the Regulator just loves to corner. And both bikes are very easy to get off the ground. They're relatively light for their respective categories, and the suspension strikes a nice balance between support and this easy quality to get into. The Regulator rewards creativity, encouraging you to take goofy lines, jump off every root and rock, and just ride in a fun, playful way. I think Transition has finally been able to make that Sentinel, but with a motor in it. All right, what would I change about the Regulator? Don't get me wrong, I really like this bike. Straight out of the box, it was very easy for me to get along with, and I felt right at home almost immediately. But like with any bike, there's probably a couple things I'd change. First off, I'm personally fine with only a 600 watt-hour battery. Most of the time, I don't have enough time to use more than 600 watt-hours on a ride. And if I do, I can throw on a range extender. And I personally prefer the handling benefit of that smaller, lighter, more compact battery. But I do know some folks would probably like the ability to run a 750 or an 800 watt-hour battery. And another thing, I've had some pivot bolts work their way back out a little Loctite, and probably pay attention and check those from time to time. So now let's jump into comparison. Starting with the Vala and Regulator CX, I still need to do a bit more back-to-back riding on these two because they're pretty damn near identical. Honestly, we probably have an entire showdown in the works, but for now, I'll give you a quick breakdown. If you were blindfolded, it would be tough to tell which bike you were riding. Biggest difference I've noticed so far is the front end height. The Vala sits quite a bit higher, which gives it a more confident planted feeling on the steeps, but it can make that front wheel feel a little bit vague. On the opposite side of that, the regulator is a bit lower in that front end, which helps you keep more weight over that front wheel, but you do lack a little bit of the confidence when things are really steep. So there's trade-offs. From a suspension standpoint, they're very similar, but my Vala is running Fox suspension and my regulator is equipped with RockShox. And there is definitely a difference in feel. And I'm not sure how much of it comes down to difference in kinematics versus difference in actual suspension components. So it might be worth me swapping the suspension back and forth. One thing I did struggle with on the Vala was the back wheel breaking loose under hard braking efforts. If you want to learn more about that, go watch our Vala video, but that is not something I experienced on the regulator. And it could just be the difference in brakes. The Vala has Mavens and the regulator has TRPs. All right, so now let's jump into the Regulator SX and the Orbea Rise LT. So both of these bikes sit at the pinnacle of pedal bike handling for any eMTB. They're light, quick, they have sharp handling. The Rise LT does have a Shimano motor, which gives it two power modes. You've got RS mode, which is 60 Newton meters, or RS Plus, which is 85, but I do think it's technically limited a little bit on the power. I do like that versatility that comes with the Rise. The range is also better on the Shimano setup. That said, from just the bike standpoint, I feel like the SX is a little easier to get along with. It's a bit more forgiving and it's a bit more capable. And at least for me, I think it's a little bit more fun to ride. Okay, so who is the regulator for? To really break this down, I think we need to look at the CX versus the SX individually, because while they have the same name, they do cater to different types of riders. So the Regulator CX has a lot in common with the Santa Cruz Vala, from its geometry and suspension to its intended use case. So if you're a rider who likes the Vala, chances are you'll like the Regulator CX quite a bit too. So where the CX really stands out is in how light and playful it feels for a full power MTB. Most full power bikes come with a certain level of heft and muscle, which makes them feel like a bit of a wrestling match out on the trail. The Regulator CX avoids that. It's about as lightweight and agile as you can get for a full power eMTB, making it perfect for those riders who enjoy an active, engaging ride. If you like to take creative lines, bunny hop every root and rock, slap corners on the way down, the Regulator CX is going to feel right at home for you. Now, for the Regulator SX, this is for those riders who don't want a heavy, cumbersome eMTB. So while full power bikes are getting lighter and their handling's getting better, the lightweight, reduced power eMTBs are still always winning from a handling standpoint. And the Regulator SX is no exception. This bike is ridiculously easy to maneuver, lean over, get off the ground. So if you're the kind of rider who likes to stay active on the bike, you're constantly moving, pumping, and just working the trail, you're going to really like the SX. It encourages a playful, dynamic ride, making it a great option for those who prefer a lively feel over just sheer power and plowability. I think another group that will like the SX are those smaller riders. So relative to their body weight, a full power eMTB could be extra heavy. And yeah, you ditch 5, 6, 7 pounds and go with the lighter weight SX, and that's going to feel way lighter. It's not just pounds on the scale, it's riding weight, or how heavy the bike feels when you're trying to ride it. And that comes across in handling. The SX has a very quick, easy, sharp handling character to it. All right, now let's jump into the scores, and we will start with the CX. Drive system gets a +1. The Bosch motor is still top of the class for performance. It's quiet, it's reliable, and powerful. I think this bike would have gotten a +2, but you only have a 600 watt-hour battery option. Climbing performance, +1. This bike has a great body position for good traction and control, and it's really good and calm and composed on those tough technical climbs. Descending capability, the CX gets a +1. It is more play than plow, but it's still pretty robust, pretty burly, pretty stiff, which helps it descend rough stuff pretty well. Now, suspension performance, we go +2 here. For the category, you can't really ask for better. There's great balance between traction and support, and it gives you a lively, poppy ride quality. Handling, we're going to go +1. Even though it's the full power option, the handling is still very light and quick and sharp. Now we're going versatility. We're going to go 0 here. You do get a Geo Adjust flip chip, but you're locked into MX wheels and you only have a 600 watt-hour battery, so it's not going to earn a lot of points here. And now for the intangibles, we're just going to go 0 because nothing really stands out. There's no real strengths in this category for me or real weaknesses, but I guess just watch out for those pivot bolts coming loose. Now we're going to go SX with the scores. Starting with the drive system, we're going to go 0. It is great on power and assistance with a really good power to weight ratio, but it is pretty short on range. Climbing performance, we're going to go +2. There is great power to weight ratio for the motor, so this thing is very fast, and it has great handling and traction and control. Descending capability, we're going to go 0. This bike leans even more toward a playful riding style than it does a strong, capable, smashing riding style. Suspension performance, +1. It gets that lively suspension feel with a very easy to bunny hop character to it. The CX got a +2, but I think that's some sprung to unsprung weight ratio stuff going on. We're going to go +1 here. Handling, we get a +2. Obviously, this bike is quick, it's spry, it's about as good as it gets for the category. It's very easy to get off the ground, and it just feels like you're riding a mountain bike. Versatility, we're going to go -1. We don't get the flip chip on this one. We only have MX wheel setup, only have a 600 watt-hour battery, so -1. Now the intangibles, again, we're going to go 0 just because there are no standouts. And that's going to do it for the Regulator. Thanks for sticking around. We'll see you next time.